What do you think of when you hear being wildly orgasmic? Do you think of birth and birth preparation? If not, you soon will. And I hope you, like me, will be wondering, why hasn't this been common knowledge we're educated about? My guest today is going to talk about preparing for pregnancy, becoming wildly orgasmic before birth. Hi, I'm Deborah Pascali-Bonaro, founder and director of OrgasmicBirth and host of the OrgasmicBirth podcast. I am honored to have Yanique Bell join us today. Yanique is a tantric intimacy and empowerment coach, also known as the Pussy Queen. She graduated from Princeton University with a bachelor's in religion, where she studied the intersections between religion and science. She weaves ancient wisdom and modern science to help wild-hearted women, men, and couples recover their original soul essence, fall deeper in love, and experience their sacred sexuality. Welcome, Yanique. I so love all that you teach, and I am so honored to have you here with us today to share your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It's such an honor to be here with you. As you know, I'm like a huge fan. So thank you so much for inviting me onto the show.
You're welcome. And I'm curious, what we kind of talked a little bit about your bio, but what led you into being the Pussy Queen? How did you reach this space where you're inspiring so many?
Yeah, so for me, my personal journey really aligned with this work. I never in a million years thought I would publicly be the Pussy Queen. I went through a period in my life where I realized that I had neglected my relationships, and I felt I was carrying a lot of sexual shame, and I was ready to be in, a relationship, but didn't really know how to navigate that stuff. Like so many women, I grew up not really having any space within my home. But also I didn't have a lot of friends who talked about sex pretty openly. We kind of glaze over it, but not really go in depth in an educated kind of way. And so as I was entering my 20s, I realized this was a huge gap in my knowledge. I'm someone who loves to read. I love, knowing things, but this I knew nothing about. And so I started to research and read books, and listen to other women's stories, and found that I wasn't alone in this. And I went on my own sexual healing journey. And that's how I ended up in this space. And as I was, reading about how the vagina is connected to consciousness and all these beautiful sacred practices that you can do, through pleasure, I found myself like, I really want to do this. I want to share this with other people. I don't want it to be something that's, private or shameful or not talked about anymore. I want to be a part of this movement to talk about pussy, to own your pussy, and also educate other women on their bodies and how to have a pleasurable experience with their bodies.
Yeah, so important, right? And I share with you also, like, not having had that knowledge, and it's such a gap for so many of us. And, I know that we share this, that too many people even believe that the vagina or the cervix are numb or lack pleasure. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the things that I came across when I was Googling in my initial personal research and starting to have sex for the first time. I found that I didn't really feel much during, penetration. And so I got onto Google, as we often do, like, what's supposed to be happening? Because I'm pretty sure what I'm experiencing is not what I thought was supposed to happen, right? I kind of freeze up and not really feel much. And I came across a website that actually said that the vagina is supposed to be numb. It's not supposed to, right?
Oh my goodness.
Right. And it was a reputable site. And I was like, wait, what? That doesn't sound correct. And because at this point, I'd read stories by women who actually have really orgasmic vaginas. So I was expecting to find a tutorial on how to get it done, right? How to get there. And so I was amazed that this was actually being said on a pretty reputable site. And so I came to understand that, within the last 100 years, our understanding about the body and female sexuality specifically has drastically grown and changed. This is a very new science. And in the 50s, I believe, is when sexologists kind of declared that the vagina is numb. And so this is where people get this from. And it's so sad to, that we're 70 years beyond that point, that this information is still passed around by well-meaning folks, by people who don't have any other experience, right, with their body, with vaginas being orgasmic. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not that someone is trying to get us women. It's just information that has changed and we know more. But unfortunately, there is, old studies that say the vagina is numb. We now know that's not true. There's women even during that period who had lived experiences of that not being true. And so for me, it's helping women to realize that is not the case. Your vagina is not meant to be numb. It is a pleasure-rich environment. You have nerve endings, not just in your clitoris, but within the vagina, in your womb and your cervix. So all these places can become orgasmic, not just your clitoris.
Yeah. And for me, like when I was learning that too, it is so expansive, not only for daily life, but of course, now we're talking about like pregnancy and birth and that. And again, this thought that it's either numb or it's painful, right? And yet being able to learn to experience the fullness of pleasure there, we can actually bring a lot of that to birth. So when you're working with people that maybe are experiencing, lack of sensation or numbness or sometimes pain, what are some of the ways that they can bring healing and expand into pleasure?
Yeah. So number one is changing our belief systems, right? So getting rid of this thought that I'm not supposed to feel anything there, so I'm not even going to tune in there, right? That's the first step. Recognizing that you can feel and feel really good there. And the next is getting some awesome tools. So I utilize breath work, meditation, and also somatic healing exercises with my clients, so that because that numbness can sometimes be trapped emotions, or it can be a result of trauma or wounding. So you may be experiencing numbness due to that, or you may simply be experiencing numbness because you have not practiced really being in your vagina or feeling into your vagina. So slowing down, incorporating something so simple as a 5-minute pussy breathing exercise can actually help you to build up your somatic awareness, right? So actually be able to feel on a deeper level and get those sensations to wake up again.
Yeah. So beautiful, right? And to know that it's not so hard, right? Like some people think, oh my goodness, I have to, do this incredible work, but it's certainly manageable. And I really appreciate that you brought in, for some people, it's trauma. Do you want to say any more? I know that many people that are listening may be survivors of sexual abuse, and, is this available for them? Is healing possible?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And, our body is so smart. Pussy has a mind of her own. She's a consciousness of her own. And so when we go through something like trauma, or even, our pelvis will react to feeling not safe in our relationships, or not safe in life, right? Not feeling like we really belong. All these things can affect the way that we feel in our bodies. And so working to resolve that trauma, it can seem like it's going to be overwhelming, but if you work with someone who is well practiced, right, who knows how to unwind out of the trauma response, you can achieve healing. And some of it is just, bringing presence and love and taking your time, not feeling like you need to force anything. I think that's one of the things that can come up around doing this work, is oh my goodness, or my vagina can be orgasmic. Now it's like another thing, right? It's another thing now that I can't do. And I hear this so much from women, even on social media, who are just like, there's so much we have to worry about as women. I don't want to, now this is another thing that I'm not doing well. I'm not, meeting this new standard. And so relieving some of that pressure and allowing yourself to be in whatever experience you are right now. And accepting, your pussy as she's presenting herself now, and allowing that acceptance to transform into something else, right? It's almost, for me, it's a spiritual practice. We go in with a desire to want to become orgasmic or want to achieve some level of healing. And when we slow the process down and opening up to simply accepting what's here, is where I find we actually find the most transformation. I know that's a little bit deep for our call today, but it's front of mind because I just did a podcast episode on acceptance, but I've been meditating on this a lot. How our desires for that change actually can bring us into a deeper presence with ourselves, which actually can create the pleasure that we're seeking.
Yeah, so beautiful. I couldn't agree with you more. And I love that acceptance, right? Really feeling in and accepting our pussy where we're at. And then you have so many beautiful ways of helping people with that acceptance and then to move deeper into healing and pleasure. So I want to ask you this for all kind of the pussy owners out there, when you say like wildly orgasmic, right? People go, wow, like, what is that? Like, what do you mean by that? And again, are there other ways that people achieve that?
Yeah, so I actually like to give women the opportunity to define for themselves what it's going to look like for them to be wildly orgasmic. So there are certain pleasure goals that I have that maybe you don't have, where it's not really that important to you, right? And so it's really a personal definition of wildly orgasmic. For me, that's being able to effortlessly orgasm, right? Not feel like I have to I'm a perfectionist, right? Recovering perfectionist. So I'm someone who will literally like, okay, how do I figure this out? What are the steps, right? And so for me, it's like not having to do that anymore, right? Actually just relax in my body and easily orgasm. And, I experience this by connecting to my heart. I feel that my pussy and my heart are deeply connected. So once I have that strong connection going, and especially during intimacy, my partner is involving my heart, right? Paying attention to those needs that I've expressed to them, I know that I'll orgasm easily. But for someone else, maybe it's like, mastering a specific orgasm, like a G-spot orgasm or cervical orgasm, or even, energetic orgasms, having orgasms in your nipples or in your throat. So I allow women to define for themselves what wildly orgasmic means for them. But for me, it's like having that easy access to my orgasm.
And so, of course, I have to ask you this. How do you feel this preparation, whether it's a healing journey or there's numbness or just taking it to a new level of pleasure and being orgasmic, can help people as they prepare for childbirth?
Yeah. So obviously you teach women how to, have pleasurable births, orgasmic births. And part of that is becoming orgasmic, right? So having access to your orgasm. And if you can do this process or start on your journey, right? Like I mentioned, it doesn't have to be super long practices. I have simple tools that do work for women. And, learning how to become orgasmic before you are pregnant can help to ease some of that worries, right? If you've never experienced an orgasm before, maybe working with someone to help you achieve that, so that when you're on your pregnancy journey, you know how to, your body that well, and you also know how to access your vaginal orgasms and have those orgasmic birth experiences that I'm sure we all want to, right?
Yes. And I think what you're offering like is so important, because when we think about that birth is happening, right, in the pussy, in the vagina, in the cervix, and being able to really lean into those sensations in different ways. As so many people know, pain can lead to pleasure, right? There can be, power in the pleasure. So there's so much available when people really are fully in touch with their pussy. I also love how you said for you, that's a heart connection, and that this is kind of a spiritual process as well of connecting. What other tips or modalities would you offer to listeners who are going, oh my goodness, like I haven't thought about this, in the different ways that the pussy's connected to our heart or our spirituality?
Yeah. So kind of what are other ways to enter into, can you ask, can
Yes.
you ask me again?
Yes. Yes, definitely. What are other ways that we can enter into connection with our pussy for pussy owners, right? As you said, heart, spirit, what are some of those other ways of connecting?
Yeah. So the very first thing that I actually invite women to do is learn their anatomy. And I actually have a wonderful client right now who's going through this process of learning her anatomy for the first time and having sex for the first time. And it's like watching her light up as she's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that was what that was, right? And so, even before you get into heart and spirit, just learning your body, learning what's down there, taking a mirror. You can pull up, I have a free tour on, there's an episode of my podcast. I'll send you guys the link so that you can link it for listeners. But, you can pull up an anatomy, a map of your vulva, and just start to learn the different parts. It's a wonderful way to start to connect to pussy. And from there, you can introduce smaller practices like the pussy breathing practice that I mentioned, or meditating, bring your awareness into your pussy or pelvis. If you have a yoga practice, it's a wonderful way to start to build that connection. And when you're ready, involving self-pleasure practices, right? Actually, getting down there and learning what makes you orgasm, what turns you on, what lights you up, what are your pussy yeses. It's like a progression of learning and exploring.
And I have to just say, I love your episode of the guided tour, right? Of really knowing your anatomy. I think that's so important. So anyone here, if you haven't listened to it or taken that exploration, I highly recommend it. So what other tips would you give to people to become wildly orgasmic?
Yeah. So, first of all, definitely building that pussy connection, right? Learning about yourself, and also involving your partner in that process, and learning what makes you, it's similar to a lot of the things that you bring women through with orgasmic birth, right? So learning what makes your body feel safe, learning what makes your pussy feel safe, learning how to connect with yourself. Like, can I phrase that a little differently? Sorry, I'm getting a little flustered.
Sure. Yeah, no. Take
I
a
think I need
pause,
some
take
water.
a breath. Our edit team is hearing us. Grab a drink. So edit team, know to restart that one again.
Sorry,
I took a sip too.
apologize.
No apology needed.
Okay, now I've lost my train of thought. So what are additional tips for becoming wildly orgasmic? I mean, feeling is definitely number one, right? So building up your pleasure sensitivity. And I honestly, this is the basic trajectory is learning to feel again. A lot of us have a lot that we don't allow ourselves to feel. When I start to work with women, it doesn't feel orgasmic to begin with. It actually, a lot of the things that are coming up is grief, it's rage, it's sadness. And this is typical because we think that when we tune into pussy or we tune into our heart space, it's just going to be lovey-dovey and it's going to be flowery and it's going to be light. And it's actually often it's encountering things that we've pushed down for many, many years or felt that we weren't allowed to feel as women, right? Especially as caregivers and nurturers, feeling that we're not allowed to feel anger. And so to start, the work that I do with women often is breaking down those barriers and allowing yourself to feel all dimensions of feeling, not just pleasure and orgasm, which, like you said, pain can become orgasmic, but you have to start to learn how to feel again. I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for, I feel like I got a little flustered because I feel like typically when people ask me that, they're like, what are the like fingering techniques and, you know, like things like that? Like, how do I stroke myself, or what's a position that's really going to get me there? And the honest, you know, truth is any of those positions would get you there. You know, any of those can work for you, but the block that I often find with women is not, you know, the position or the physical technique. It's actually being able to feel, is the major block that I encounter, but a lot of the people I work with.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Yanique, I felt like that's so important, right? And often not talked about. I really appreciate how you say that. Sometimes people focus so much on technique and don't realize it's all that's underneath, right? That has to be felt to bring full feeling. So is there anything else you'd want to share about becoming wildly orgasmic? Or just what programs you have to offer? Because I know many people listening are like, okay, how do I work with you and what else can I do?
Yeah, so I literally have a program called Wildly Orgasmic. So that's a 6-week masterclass, and I take you through the 3 core pleasure expanders. I teach you how to use breath work, sound, meditation, all these really awesome tools to expand your pleasure capacity and bring feeling back to, you know, your vagina, bring feeling back to your body, and also, you know, feel on a deeper level, right? Actually learn how to sit with yourself and allow those emotions to come up, whatever might be stored in the body. And I also include in that training how to have expanded orgasms, right? So how to have orgasms in new places, how to extend the your orgasm to last maybe 15 seconds or 30 seconds or a minute, however long you would like to go for. And yeah, so that's my primary program for expanding your orgasm. And if you'd like to work with me privately, like we covered, you know, briefly here, a lot of becoming orgasmic is emotional healing work. And it's work that, you know, I'm able to take you into on a one-on-one basis, especially if you're dealing with trauma or wounding.
And where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I actually recently got onto TikTok. So you can find me on TikTok at Yanique_Bell. And I'm trying to reboot my Instagram account. So you can also find me there at Yanique_Bell. And my website is yaniquebell.com. I also have a free quiz on the site for anyone who's like, how do I get started? You can actually take the quiz and get matched with a free 7-day practice, which there's a practice for women, for men, for couples. There's a heart practice for couples. The pussy breathing practice that I mentioned, you can also get matched with that practice by taking the quiz. So it's a really fun way to connect with the work and get a free little practice to get you started.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. This has been so informative. And, you know, you are also a guest teacher, Yanique, in our Orgasmic Birth Practitioner course, as we're really working to have more birth workers themselves, not only do the practice themselves, and I hope connect with you, but ways that we can bring this so that everyone during childbirth, when you're preparing during pregnancy, has access to know the full potential and pussy power and pleasure that they have. So I want to thank you so much for the work you're doing. And thank you for being with us today to share an overview of some of your practices and becoming wildly orgasmic.
Yes, thank you so much, Deborah. It was such an honor to, you know, meet with you again. It's always a pleasure to see you whenever you pop up on my feed. I love you and I'm so grateful for you. And every woman listening, oh, can we have a moment to just, I don't know, praise the heavens that Deborah exists.
Oh,
thank you for having me.
thank you so much.